In January of 2015, I stepped onto a plane for the first time in my life for my first ever international trip, a trip to Belize, Central America. I knew it was going to be an amazing adventure, but if you had told me just how deeply I would fall in love with this country in only 2 short weeks, I would have had a hard time believing I could love any place that much. If you would have told me I would be able to explore places that were so beautiful it was like I walked into a computer screensaver, I would have had a hard time believing places that beautiful actually existed. And if you had told me that I should prepare myself to have a spooky, practically supernatural experience inside of an ancient cave, I would have told you I didn't believe in the supernatural. But I would have been proven wrong in all 3 cases. I'm Christiana.
And I'm Bree.
Settle in and prepare to explore a mystical place.
Because you're about to hear something strange.
This is Strange Snapshot number 4, Christiana's experience in an ancient Mayan sacrificial cave.
I have been calling it your serial killer origin story.
So I'm going to start this off just by reminding our listeners where this story came from. Some of you may remember me bringing my experience up in a Mayan sacrificial cave during our episode on the Fae. I believe you had asked me if I had any guesses as to where people thought the Fae came from. And it reminded me of the story of this cave.
I wondered where, because it's come up in multiple episodes. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't remember the origin story for this.
Yes, it was, I believe it was the Fae episode, if I remember correctly. So for this mini, I'll be giving a brief overview of this cave and its history, as well as reading the section of my travel journal that I kept for my Belize trip about this cave. I'm going to start with just a little bit of information about the cave first. The Actun Tunichil Muknal, aka ATM cave, is a cave that was used by ancient Mayans as a sacrifice and religious site. And Actun Tunichil Muknal translates to Cave of the Stone Sepulchre. When I visited, it was known as the Cave of the Crystal Maiden. I'm not sure if they still call it that at this point, but we will learn more about that later.
Okay, I was going to ask, is there like different mythologies, different stories that contributed to those names, or we'll dive into that in a bit?
We'll dive into that in a bit. It's interesting. The whole reason I visited this cave was because I took a study abroad course at Wilson, the college that Bree and I both went to.
Both of us,
Yeah. That took us to Belize. It was technically a 3-week course. There was like a super intensive 1-week like lecture course where we were in lecture for like 5 hours. Really long, jammed into a week. And then we went to Belize. And the first half of the trip we spent in the rainforest where the cave is located. And the second half we spent out on the Keys, snorkeling and studying the mangroves. And when we were in the rainforest, that wasn't the only reason we went to the cave. Like, that's not the only thing we studied there, but it was one of the coolest things we did, in my opinion. Everything was cool.
So was this a culture type of class? Was it like, what's the word I want? Not nature studies. What's the word?
Ecological.
There ecology?
Ecology.
Like, what was the, what department was this under?
It was ecology, earth sciences.
Okay.
I forget what exactly. It was one of those deals I needed to get a credit as one of our gen eds. And I was like, well, I'm going to Belize for that.
Why not,
right?
Yeah.
It was so funny because I never thought I was going to be able to do it. Like, I went to... They had like not a lecture,
informational?
Like an informational presentation about it and like what the class would entail. And I went to it with my roommate and a bunch of my friends. And they were all like, we're going to do this. And I was just so put out about it because it looked so cool and it looked so fun. I was like, there is no way. I did not believe one of my parental figures was going to allow me to take this class. I just didn't think it was going to be a possibility for me, but I brought it up to this parent anyway, and they were shockingly for it. So okay. I got a scholarship for it and then had to pay a bunch out of pocket as well, but it was worth it. It was worth every penny.
Oh, it definitely sounds like it. And I think it's always I say as someone who has only left the country to go to Canada and not very far into Canada. Yeah. I do think it's so helpful and so just good to get out and see other parts of the world, especially ones that are very, very different than our own.
Yeah. I agree. Like, and I think I kind of grew up with like, so this trip is what caused me to get the travel bug. I kind of grew up, please don't think I'm not bashing my parents when I say any of this. Like, I did not grow up with a whole lot of money, and my parents did everything they could for me, but I was very, very blessed when I grew up. Like, I was able to be like in marching band in high school and middle school. I was able to take riding lessons from the time I was 7 years old, but we just didn't have a whole lot of money. And my parents would try to take vacations once a year, like week long, anywhere that we could drive to, so that we were still at least getting out. But anything involving getting on a plane, I kind of was almost conditioned in a way to be like that's never going to happen for me, because we just didn't have the money for it. And they weren't, again, I'm not bashing my parents, like they were literally, we were doing our best to live within our means, and I understand that. Like, I'm not upset in any way, but this trip kind of like opened that door for me of realizing, like, if I want to do this, I'm allowed to save my money and do this. Like, I'm not going to live outside of my means to do it. But so it was just kind of a cool experience to like open that door. And then, like you said about experiencing other things that are like way different in this country, it opened my eyes so much, because the one place we stayed was considered an eco resort, but it was not like a Sandals or what's another one? I think isn't there one like Atlantis that's like a big resort?
Yes, you mean like in some of like the South American countries and like Mesoamerica. Yeah, there's Sandals, there's Atlantis.
Some other, like, it wasn't anything like that, like an eco, it was like a decent hotel room essentially, but this was called Mama Newt's Rainforest.
Is this where the cat was?
Yeah. Okay. Whiskey cat.
Yeah, and that came up in Rabies.
Oh yeah, we talked about Belize a little bit in Rabies.
That's how I know about that cat. Yeah, we've talked about Belize quite a bit, because every time we talk about murder and how you never have paranormal experiences, the murder cave comes up.
I will say that I had not.
Sorry, the sacrifice cave.
The sacrifice cave. It's funny because I haven't ever thought about myself as having a paranormal experience, but I will say I think that's about as close as I've ever come. And we'll talk about that. Like, I'm going to read the actual entry. Part of my study abroad, that this was part of like the classroom aspect, is we had to keep a daily journal of everything that we did. And you could do like, you had like your time to free write, but then you also like, we would take notes on tours. We had to do like a presentation at one point on the trip about different aspects of the Keys. When we were on the Keys, we were living with a Garifuna family, which is one of the cultures down there. And they were amazing people. I love them. I miss them to this day. Just little things like that. So these are what I'm going to read later is my exact notes from that time of when we visited that cave and exactly how I felt in that moment.
When you say the Keys, what do you like?
The Keys are kind of like islands. I wouldn't be able to give you the exact geological definition of them, but they're like islands outside of a mainland. So if you hear of like the Florida Keys,
where my brain goes, yeah.
Also, really quick, guys, I feel like I need to put a quick disclaimer in here. If I start talking really fast, I apologize, or like I get loud. I'm gonna try to like moderate my volume. I get really, really excited talking about Belize, because it was such a like eye-opening experience for me. It still remains to this day like one of my most favorite experiences in my life. Like, when I say I cried on the plane home, I felt like when I was leaving Belize, I felt like, instead of like, you know how sometimes like you're never ready to leave a vacation, you're never ready to go home from vacation, but you are kind of like ready to be in your house and I felt like I was leaving home permanently. Like, and I was only there for 2 weeks and it affected me that much. So I'm going to try to like moderate my volume.
Okay, probably a silly question. Do you not normally get teary? Like, there's certain places that if I leave, like when I leave North Carolina,
yeah,
or when I leave like my grandparents' house in Potter County, I get really teary.
Yeah.
Now, like, I've been going to Potter County since I was little, and they've had this house since years. My aunts, I've gone the last couple years, but like I even get teary like when I leave there.
Like you feel like you're leaving a place that's your home more so than like going home type of thing? Or
I don't know what it is.
Just something there.
Maybe I'm just emotional. I don't know.
No, it's okay. But I get what you're saying. I get sad, but that was, I think, the only time so far physically, besides like when I was like little, when having to leave my grandparents' house, I always cried because I loved my grandparents. Leaving Belize was the only time that I was ever like brought to active, like fighting back tears. I was so scared on the plane because as we were taking off, there was a lady sitting next to me. She was very nice, but she's like, "Oh, did you enjoy your time in Belize? You know, oh, we went here. And I was like trying to be nice and talk to her. I was so choked up I could barely get words out of my mouth because I didn't want her to think I was having a meltdown on the plane.
Well, okay, so like leaving my grandparents, I get choked up because I don't see them super often. We take our dog everywhere when we go places.
Yeah.
The only time that I was like actively excited to go home from a vacation was California. Yeah. And not because I wanted to leave California, because I wanted to see my dog.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, no, I definitely feel that. That was the one thing I will say. It's funny you bring that up. It just reminded me. I hadn't thought about that in a while. But I had the thought of like going home. I was like, well, at least I'll see Merlin, who was my horse. I didn't have Dalian at the time. So I was like, well, at least I'll see Merlin. And then I felt terrible because I was like, your mom's at home too. And I was like, not that I didn't want to see my mom. But
it's like, I mean, I get excited to see my horses too.
Yeah.
But it's like,
you little doge.
They aren't as excited to see me.
You're like, kind of to wrap up, I think what I was saying before was like, one of the things that did affect me so much on this trip was like learning about the different cultures, because there were a lot of different cultures in Belize. There are people that are Hispanic. There are people that are Mayan. There's the Garifuna culture. There's just like, there's so many different people that live there. Even though they call it like a developing country or a third world country, this might be a hot take. Everyone there, and granted, I was only there for 2 weeks, so like grain of salt. Everyone there just seemed so much genuinely happier than we do in this country. We're one of the richest countries in the world. And we all just act so... It feels like everyone is just so miserable here half the time. And again, we can cut that out. That might be a little hot take, but...
I was going to say that we have this really... what I'm about to say, I'm very, very guilty of. Mm-hmm. We have this very like hustle... Like, you know, rest is for when you're dead.
Yes.
And that does not tend to create happiness. That tends to create burnout. Once again, I say this as someone with 2 jobs, a podcast, 50-50 custody of a podcast.
Yeah. Multiple animals.
And then I sing in multiple groups. So, like, am I very much part of this hustle culture? Yes. Do I have a hard time allowing myself to rest? Yes.
Yeah.
But I think in places where that's not, like, they don't have that, you have to push to get ahead. Mm-hmm. I think people do tend to be happier because they're not burning themselves out all the time.
Right. Yeah. It was just fascinating to learn about. I loved it. It was so interesting. Part of this culture, this is kind of a segue, leads into, I said that, you know, the Mayan culture was very prevalent in Belize. That kind of leads into what we're talking about today with this cave. Back to a little more information about the cave itself. Like I said, the name Actun Tunichil Muknal translates to Cave of the Crystal Sepulchre, and many artifacts remain in that cave from Mayan religious ceremonies and sacrifices to this day, including skeletons.
Okay. So is it treated, you know, like Gettysburg, like, is treated almost like a cemetery? Mm-hmm. Because there's so many remains that were...
Yes.
Does it have like a similar kind of vibe of like, this is a place you have to be very, very respectful because there are so many remains?
Yeah, that's the feeling I got from it. And if I remember, it was, and there are certain things, I'll actually talk about this a little bit later, like you're not allowed to bring cameras inside. You know, you do have to be respectful. Mm-hmm. And they're very careful. I didn't learn this part so much while we were taking the tour, but I learned it. I did a little research into the history of the cave and whatnot just to refresh myself for this episode. And it's very specific, like the guides, like you don't have like a whole bunch of different tourist groups going in and out of this cave. Like there's very, very specific people that are allowed in and out of here. Like they treat it very, very carefully. And part of that is like you do have to be careful in the cave itself, because even when you're in a cave, even just touching the cave walls, your oils from your hands will damage. Yeah. Exactly. The cave is located in the rainforest in the Mountain Tapir Reserve area.
Okay.
A tapir, I believe the tapir is the national animal of Belize.
I was going to say, they're
very cute
animals.
Yeah, they look like almost like mini hippos with trunks.
I've been calling them tapirs. That's probably wrong.
Tapir. Or tapir.
Oops. Okay.
I got to feed them carrots. They're
okay,
so cute.
Like, how do they
what did they do? I think they use their mouths underneath their little nosy trunks, and they take stuff. But I think they snuffle around a little bit with their trunks. I should pull some videos up and pictures for my trip.
Do you have any?
Oh yeah.
They sniffle.
They're so cute. I love them. They're precious.
Do they are they kind of rooters, or are they?
Not really. I don't think. I do believe are they insect eaters?
That sounds right.
I feel like I want to say that, yes. But I got to feed them at the Belize Zoo when we went, because that was one of the other places we went, which is the coolest zoo in the world, in my opinion.
Are they related to elephants? Or pigs?
I don't know, actually.
I'm quizzing you on these now.
Yeah.
You didn't do your homework. Just
I
kidding.
didn't do my homework, apparently. I have so many pictures and videos. We can post them all if you want. I have like thousands of pictures. To get to this cave in the rainforest, there's a trail that leads you in. You hike for about 45 minutes, and a guide leads you there and back. And you also have to swim into the entrance. At the mouth of the cave, there's a pool of water that's about 12 feet deep. So once you get inside the cave, you walk through water in twisty, narrow passages to get to the cave caverns, which are massive. So I'm not sure if the cave is waterlogged 100% of the time. So when my class went, we almost didn't get to take the tour because there had been a bunch of rain, and it literally the tunnel was accessible. It was, I think, if I remember, it was either I don't know if it was completely underwater or if it was just deep enough that you would have to like swim the whole way, and they're not going to do tours like that because it could. But there is, so I believe there's water that runs through these passages at all times to an extent. So when you walk through, they give you headlamps and hard hats, and you're trucking through water the whole time. There were places, if I remember correctly, that got deep enough that you had to like swim from one place to another.
Oh, goodness.
It wasn't like crazy. You know, you would have like dog paddle a couple feet and then you'd be on solid land, like touching ground again.
In the ancient Mayan religions, right? I think also Aztec to a point too. There was like those underground caves were part of the underworld to them.
Yes, and we'll talk about that.
Sorry.
No. You're good.
I know very little about Belize, but I remember a little bit of stuff from the religious. We didn't go a whole lot into some of those religions. Most of what I remember is actually probably from a non-Western art class.
Oh, fair. Sure.
About the religious stuff, but I do remember that, about the caves being part of their underworld.
Yes, and we, like I said, we will get into that. So that's a good segue for later.
Put a pin in that.
So, you had to be pretty careful going through. I remember we would pass up and down the line, like, because we were on like a single file line of like, hey, you know, there's a step down here. Hey, there's a rock sticking up, because you couldn't really see what you were doing. It was crazy. And I mentioned this earlier. Cameras are not allowed inside this cave due to potential damage to the artifacts. And the one article I referenced, I didn't know, we were told that we could not bring cameras in on our tour. And I did not remember the year that this happened, but I found it in an article doing my extra research on this in 2012. So it was only a couple years before our class went. They used to allow cameras in there. And a tourist accidentally dropped a camera through a skull.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And just broke a hole right through the skull.
Oh.
So they very quickly stopped after that. And to that person, I don't know that I'm sure they did not do it on purpose. Roxy's like, you're doomed. She's like, I'm getting out of here.
Roxy is like, I'm not the goddess from that culture, but
you cursed, buddy.
She's trying to dig through the floor.
She is.
See, not only were the spirits that they were sacrificing to upset, but they've also upset the Schnauzer goddess.
They have. She was like, they dropped a camera through the skull.
And like, I'm sure it was an accident.
Oh yeah.
I wonder, like, has anyone followed up with that person?
I don't know. Like, if you're listening, are you okay?
Like, can you tell us what happened after that encounter?
I'm like, I feel like you might be at least a little bit cursed. So, some history. Mayans first entered the cave in the years of 300 to 600 AD, though possibly earlier, according to one of my sources. They began to perform ceremonies there between 700 and 900 AD. The cave was rediscovered in 1989, but didn't open to the public until 10 years later to the archaeological study that the cave underwent. 1,400 artifacts dating between 250 and 909 AD were found in that cave. This included tools, weapons, ceramics, stoneware, and water vessels, as well as skeletal remains. And they were remarkably well preserved.
Like on purpose, or is that just kind of a byproduct of the conditions of the cave?
So it was the conditions of the cave. So I actually go into that just in a couple seconds here. The skeletons showed evidence that some of the ceremonies and rituals performed in the cave were sacrifice related or sacrificial in nature. Yes.
Some.
Or probably all of them. I was going to say, I don't know if the article was... Well, I think there were other rituals performed there potentially that did not involve
human sacrifices.
Right.
But all of the skeletons were
that
purposefully there.
Yes, yeah. Correct. Sorry for the confusion.
No, you're good. You're good.
Some evidence also included signs of ritualistic torture, which is not great.
That's delightful?
Yeah.
Question mark?
Yes.
Ugh.
I won't go too deep into that.
Do they know if the people that were sacrificed were like offering themselves as sacrifices, or was it like a, hey, guess what your new honor is?
I'm not really sure on that one. And I think if I remember, I'm trying to think back to my tour. Some of the other places we toured were the Actun Tunichil ruins, which is one of the giant Mayan pyramids. And they talked about different things that were done there. I'm honestly not sure. I'm trying to remember that tour, but I can't remember specifically, and I don't want to say the wrong thing.
No, you're good. I mean, from my very limited knowledge of those types of religious practices in those areas, sometimes it was like a great honor to be chosen to be the sacrifice.
Yeah. And then other times it wasn't.
Congratulations, you lost the game of the hip ball thing.
Yeah. So the hip ball, that actually, we saw a court where they would play that. If you guys have seen the movie
Road to El Dorado,
yeah. honestly, I love that movie.
do too.
They play that game.
The stars.
And the stars are not in alignment for this sacrifice.
No stars.
It's tough to be a god.
That's great. We should watch that movie if we ever launch a Patreon.
Yes.
That can be one of the extras.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Oh my God, it's a movie you've seen.
Yeah, I have seen Road to El Dorado. I love that movie. We should dress up as them.
Oh my God, that would be fun.
That would be fun. Stella can be the horse. What's his name? Altivo.
There we go.
Altivo. He's gray, but that's okay. She can be a roan Altivo. But yes, that was that ball game. Our tour guide was saying, like, sometimes it could be like the people that lost would be sacrificed. But then again, it could maybe even be the people that won were sacrificed.
Everyone's sacrificed. That'd be a really hard way to develop your team if everyone keeps getting like...
Yeah, everyone's like, I don't know if I want to play at all. The skeletal remains of 14, though one of my sources does say it was 13, different people were found in the main chamber of the ATM cave, including that of children. And again, I'm not going to go into that.
Ugh.
Yeah. Possibly the most famous skeleton in the cave is known as the Crystal Maiden. Talked about this earlier a little bit. The maiden was found, quote unquote maiden, was found in the main cavern. And I was there and I did see this particular, I saw several skeletons and I did see this particular skeleton. This cavern is freaking enormous. When I tell you, like, you could fit a church in there. I mean, it is huge. Like, it just incredible.
And like those are all carved out by water, right?
I think so. I think sometimes it could be just like the way the rocks form in the earth and then like water carves it out. Like, I think there's all kinds of different ways that it can be.
I guess my point is it's really, really cool what nature can do all on its own.
Oh, yeah.
And people are like, this is cool. Let's sacrifice people here.
Yeah. The reason this skeleton is known as the quote-unquote Crystal Maiden is due to the effects of the skeleton's environment and what the cave itself has done to this skeleton, and all the other ones really as well. Essentially, they are calcified, which creates the appearance of the bones being coated in this like kind of sparkly crystalline substance, and it almost cements them into the floor. Because the coating kind of goes over them, over the floor, so it kind of, you can still see the skeleton pretty clearly, but it was very different looking at it versus looking at like a preserved skeleton that could be like in a glass case, say.
I was gonna say, is it like the natural, like, because it'd be much less clear? It's like the natural version of that almost, like it would be protected because it'd be protected by the calcification.
Yeah, in a way. So I don't know what the bones underneath all that have done, if they have like rotted away, almost like the Pompeii bodies, like how you can see. So I don't know. I'm assuming there's probably still bones in there because there wouldn't be a good way for them to decompose. But it was interesting. It was really, really interesting.
It sounds like it. So it almost like made a cast of the bones.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And like I said, since it covered everything, it kind of cemented them to the floor as well. So you'd almost have to like chip it, like if you wanted to move it for some reason, which let's not do that.
Good
friends.
way to get cursed.
Don't do that.
I
You
like
would almost
screamed
have
that
to
into the
like
microphone.
chip away at the calcification to like physically lift it off the floor, if that makes sense.
That just sounds like a bad idea.
Yes. Let's not do that.
Let's not disturb bodies if we can help it.
No.
There's so many PSAs I never thought I'd have to say in this podcast and in my career.
Yeah, truly. Other artifacts in the cave are also heavily calcified. Many, including the Crystal Maiden themselves, have been, I already kind of said this, essentially fused to the floor due to the layers of calcification. And you may have noticed here, I have not really referred to the Crystal Maiden as a her or a she. That's because the skeleton is actually not that of a female.
Oh.
Or a biological female.
A crystal dude.
That's okay. You read? Hang on. Put a pin in that. So the skeleton is small and slight, which originally led to the conclusion that, it must be a woman,
female.
a female. However, on closer examination, certain features of the skeleton came to light that showed the skeleton was actually that of a male around 17 years old.
Aww.
Yeah, which sucks. But it explains like why it would be smaller, that kind of thing.
Oh, no. There are like 13 and 15-year-old boys that are taller and bigger than me.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Just saying.
But it's funny. One of my sources states that some of the ATM tour guides call the skeleton the Crystal Prince rather than the Crystal Maiden.
Oh, you know what? That's better than the crystal dude.
Yeah, so our tour guide, I don't want to say his name just to be on the safe side. He was so funny. Like he had that like really dry, like level wit where like he would not change his tone of voice at all. But he would just crack these jokes and it made it 10 times funnier. So he was like, it would be better. I forget what the lead up to the punchline of this joke is, but essentially he was saying something along the lines of, they call it that because it sounds better than Cave of the Crystal Dude. Just the tone that he had. It was hysterical. It was so funny.
And it probably took a second to be like, wait, what did you just say? The cave. And then over here to your right, you have the Cave of the Crystal Dude. And then to your left.
And we were like, wait. What? And he was like the whole time on the tour, he was so funny. Like, I hope he's having a great day wherever he is. But like there were different formations in the cave that form very naturally. And one of them, like when he pointed his flashlight at him, he says, you know what we call this one? We're like, what? He's going, the finger. And he like bounced the light and it looked like someone like bouncing the finger.
You just did that right in the camera.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. But he was literally like, the finger.
The finger.
What's happening?
That sounds great.
He was, all of our tour guides were amazing, but I still remember him to this day. He was so funny.
You should try and get him on the show.
Oh my God. If him or our guide, so he was our tour guide for just strictly the ATM cave.
The Cave of the Crystal Dude.
Cave of the Crystal Dude. And then we had two other tour guides that stayed with us for a while on the first couple days of our trip. And then the last like half of the first week and the entirety of our second week in Belize was a a gentleman, again, I don't want to say his name. We all loved him. We wanted to adopt him and bring him home with us. Like we were all in love with this guy. He was so sweet, so knowledgeable, amazing. But no, he was wonderful. And he and I had we picked on each other all the time in Belize. Like he got to the point at one point we were out in the Keys and we kayaked a lot in the ocean to get to the different reefs. And in your kayak, you would have a sponge that was a bailing sponge. If you got water in the kayak, you could bail it out.
Kayak in the water.
If you got kayak in the water. But
when that happens.
He at one point snuck up behind our kayak and threw his sponge at me. I was like, listen here. Back to the skeleton here. Crystal Prince, I guess we can call him, is positioned flat on its back with one leg kind of stuck straight out to the side. Mm-hmm. And sadly, due to the way the skeleton is posed and evidence of there are 2 crushed vertebrae in the spine, they think he died a particularly violent death.
Okay.
So again, I don't want to go too deep into it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, this might be an off the air conversation, like, this is a really, really sick question. Like, what kinds of, how did they do it? Yeah. Is that an off the air question? Or a trigger warning?
I'll be honest, I'm not really sure the answer to that because none of the articles really specified how they thought these people went. Trigger warning here, referencing what I mentioned earlier about ritualistic torture. Yeah. They did mention bleeding people. So you might be bleeding on an altar. I don't know if that's how the sacrifice was performed itself. If it was exsanguination. Yeah.
Does it depend on the god too? Because I know for certain, the pyramids, right? They would take trigger warning for taking organs out of people's bodies.
Yeah.
They would take, they would take the still beating. Is it at the Aztec or is it the Mayan where they would take the still beating heart out of the?
I think the Aztec,
yeah,
but the Aztec people.
I think that was to a specific god.
Okay,
I don't think it was to any Quetzalcoatl or whoever.
Yeah,
Quetzalcoatl.
I'm not certain. I know of that practice of taking the heart out, but I don't know which specific god it was.
But I kind of wonder if it was the where Mexico City is now, and I'm going to try and say it because I think that was Quetzalcoatl. Okay, yeah. I'm probably saying that wrong. Anyone who has Aztec, Mayan, whatever background, I sincerely apologize. Please don't let me get cursed.
And please tell us. We want to learn more about this. We're not out here trying to spread false information. We want to learn. So please tell us.
We apologize for a reason because we want to make sure what we're saying is factual.
Yeah, absolutely.
How I want to say it, right? How demons cause OCD apparently.
Yeah. We're smug Karens.
That's hilarious. You're doing well when you get hate comments. I'm just saying.
That's true. That's true.
But anyways, I wonder if back to that, if certain
it could be
different gods were different.
And I do go in very briefly into the religious aspect of it a little bit towards the end. So it could be different gods. The one thing I will mention and call this a trigger warning, but it's not particularly gory. It talked a couple of the articles, if I remember, that I referenced talked about artifacts having quote unquote kill holes in them, but it didn't go any further into it. It would say this artifact was seen to have a quote kill hole, and then it would just move on. So I don't know if that meant someone got struck in the skull.
I wonder because you wouldn't be able to see a wound necessarily in soft tissue the same way you would see in a skeleton, right?
Sure.
So if it's a hole, you would see the skull being broken, or you might see maybe something in the chest cavity
potentially. If and the 2 vertebrae on the boy,
or even the lower spine, because that would be you could still survive that probably, but that's paralyzing you.
Yeah,
depending on where it's cut. If it hit the femoral artery, then
you would exsanguinate.
You're donezo.
Yeah, pretty quickly.
Sorry
guys. I know that got a little rough. It's part of the story. So why sacrifices? The understanding of why the ancient Mayan people believed sacrifice was necessary lies in their religious and spiritual beliefs, like we were just kind of talking about. The Mayan underworld is called Xibalba and is the home of the gods of the underworld. And these gods include, depending on your beliefs, the gods of agriculture, rain, and fertility.
That's interesting parallels to Greek and Roman, because the gods of the underworld, like, is tied into that. The season changing is the story of Persephone and Hades.
Yeah, I just had that. I was just thinking that.
Yeah, it's interesting how that kind of, those are two very, very separate cultures, right?
In very different parts of the world.
And I, like, even like the fertility side of things, right? Anything with nature tends to be tied into fertility.
Sure, which makes sense. Like, it's growth of crops. It's just growth.
People, things.
People.
And the idea that you would have to do something to venerate and keep these gods happy. Because, okay, like, if you're tying this into agriculture, rain, fertility, those are all things that are absolutely necessary.
Sure.
For a culture to survive.
Absolutely. Yes. There was a National Geographic article I read, and it stated that sacrifices often did occur in times of drought, famine, or infertility. So, makes sense.
People sacrifices or others? Like, for example, if you were like having a horrifically bad drought, would you sacrifice a human versus it's getting sketchy, but it's not bad? You might sacrifice like a horse or a cow.
I'm not sure for certain. I believe that article in particular was referencing human sacrifice. Although I do remember from my Tord, I believe they did find a jaguar skeleton in there. I did not see that skeleton. Oh my goodness.
I thought jaguar, but didn't say it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We share one brain cell.
We do.
It was yelling at me. It's like, say jaguar.
You were like, nah.
I'm like, no, that's silly. Why would they sacrifice a jaguar?
Well, and jaguars are big over there. I mean, now they're endangered because humans. But
wow, that's sum up of why a lot of things are endangered.
I also saw jaguars while I was over there. Not in the wild. There were the one eco resort we stayed at. They did have stories of people if you got up real early in the morning and it was still quiet. Sometimes you would see them on the road coming in. There was a person that apparently saw a jaguar, and then the cat saw the person and was like, nope, and took off into the trees.
So the cat noped.
Yeah, but
you don't go pss, pss, pss.
No, not to jaguars.
What's the opposite of pss, pss, pss?
Yes.
like what's the opposite of that?
Please go away.
Take pots and pans and bang them together.
I don't get no sleep because of y'all.
It doesn't just work on demons.
But yeah, I saw them at the Belize Zoo, and they're incredible. They're beautiful.
They're big, aren't they?
They're big. Yeah, they're absolutely beautiful.
Big kitty cats.
Big kitty cats. There is a different theory. I want to throw this in here for the sake of it was in one of my articles about reasons behind sacrifice. One theory did say, this was on Atlas Obscura, it said people that were sacrificed were potentially witches, and leaving when they were sacrificed, if they left the body down in the cave without a proper burial, it could trap the soul there, so it couldn't, I presumably couldn't come back and hurt the village or the tribe or however they were referred to.
That's a heck of a lot of witches.
Yes, I know. That's why I'm like, I wanted to put it in there for the sake of like, I did see it. I don't want to just completely discredit it, but I lean much more towards religious practice. You know,
I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but I would be curious as to where they got that information from.
Right.
Like what points to it. Okay, like the idea of, okay, the body, like their souls can't come up, but like, where are they getting that? Because that's a very Christian.
That's the thing.
And Greco-Roman too, right? Like you upset a god, you couldn't be properly buried.
Oh, okay.
So like if you have something to like make one of the deities upset, and you weren't given a proper burial because of that, that was the whole thing. But in like Christianity, right? There's this whole idea of needing a proper burial. Like we see that with ghost stories too. Like how many hauntings are there that it's haunted because the person wasn't given their proper burial or their proper last rites, or
they weren't laid to rest, so to speak. So like I said, I 100% agree, and I, for the sake of saying I said it, and I didn't just completely ignore that part of the article, but I do completely agree. I think it was much more so that was part of their spiritual practice versus.
I would be very, I mean, like, I'm not saying it's not true. I would just be very, like, I would really enjoy finding whatever that information was and learning about why those particular beliefs were held. I love anthropology though.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And for the record, I did not see, that was in one article. I did not see that
Obscura.
anywhere else. So,
Okie dokie.
Yeah. As to why these ceremonies and sacrifices occurred in caves, this is somewhat up to logical guesswork. Based on the articles I read, it's possible that they saw these caves as gates to the underworld. And in performing sacrifices right there, it was almost like they were literally leaving an offering right at the doorstep of these gods. Right at, like, all but laying it right at their feet. So from here, I never quite know how to phrase this. I can understand why they felt that this was a proper place to perform these rituals and sacrifices. And I'm actually at the point of the episode where I am going to read the exact what I wrote in my notebook for my tour. And it was kind of funny because I haven't read back through my notes from this in a really, really long time. So when we went to Belize, I think it was 2015, and obviously no, so it would have been like 10 years ago that we went, and I haven't looked back at them in all this time. And it was funny when I did read back through this particular section, just how relevant it still was. I was like, oh yeah, I still, like, this must have really affected me, because it's exactly how I feel 10 years later.
But no, that is so cool that it's left like such a large impact on you, even all of these years later.
Yeah. I say it to this day. It was a very, and again, I don't really know how to describe it properly, but I'll do my best here. Day 3 dawned rather dark and way too early for my taste, but it was another day full of adventure. We had our last breakfast at the Tropical Education Center, then packed up and hit the road to Actun Tunichil Muknal Cave. Oh, sorry, really quick, before I go any further, I will say I did take names out. I didn't use very many names, like none of my classmates' names or in here or anything, but I did take the name of my guide out just to let you guys know. Firstly, I must say that our guide was hilarious. He was incredibly knowledgeable about the cave and its history, but had a great sense of humor at the same time. The hike back to the cave was beautiful. It's kind of strange when you're little, people tell you about the rainforest and all the fascinating things there. But just like I said about the Mayan ruins, you can't comprehend it unless you're there. We passed a few trees with really interesting kind of triangle-shaped roots going into the ground. They were big enough to sit in. If I had a book, I could have crawled into one of those little niches and read for hours. I was pretty pumped when we got to the mouth of the cave. I'd never been spelunking before, so I was pretty excited to try it. Parenthesis, pre-hike guide quote. Don't touch any of the artifacts because we all know what happened to Indiana Jones. I'm not kidding you guys when I say he was hilarious.
That's great. Like
he was so funny. When I saw the mouth of the cave, though, I felt a little wary, almost frightened, but not quite. I don't know what it was, but the mouth of the cave just had this mysterious, almost foreboding look about it. It was completely surreal. If I could write down every little detail about the journey through the cave, I would, but there was just way too much. The rock was almost rose and cream colored, and some areas of mineral deposits were pure white. All the formations and just the way the rocks were placed, the size of the thing, just amazing. I'm pretty sure I've said this about everywhere we've been, but I have no other words. Some of the formations looked like long icicles, others like swirling streamers. One cast a shadow like a grizzly bear. During cave hike guide quote, that's either yogi, smogy, or boo-boo. I just can't describe it all. I guess memories will have to suffice. Then there were the chambers of the cave themselves. Just wow. I can't imagine how the Mayans must have felt so long ago stepping into one of these places. Totally in awe, I guess. I could see why they worshipped and performed religious rituals there. The sheer size of the chamber was awe-inspiring in and of itself, absolutely huge. And then there were the formations. One wall looked like it was completely covered in white icicles. Some were so delicate, and then others looked like nothing could tear them down. Then on another side, there was a formation like a great castle, with towers and turrets and everything. The thing that really struck me, though, was how the cave felt, in a way, alive. It felt to me like it was holding its breath, kind of a hushed, sacred silence. The walls themselves seemed to be breathing and growing. Even thinking back now, I'm truly awed by what I remember. My heart's beating pretty fast. Looking at some of the remains of the sacrifices, it chills me to think of what went on in that place. According to our guide, one of the skeletons he showed us was thought to have been kneeling, facing the wall, with his hands tied behind his back before he was killed. Looking at the way the minerals had deposited over the skull, it looked like the skull actually had eyes rather than just empty sockets. It was alarming, imagining how he must have felt and what had happened. The Crystal Maiden was just as intriguing as everything else. What I found most interesting was that the entire skeleton, or at least what looked like the entire skeleton, had been preserved and in good shape. While the bones of the other skeletons had been rather jumbled together or crumpled, the skeleton of the maiden looked almost perfectly laid out, besides a leg that was twisted funny, and the minerals completely covered and preserved it that way. So fascinating to think of how nature did that without any help from humans. The last thing I'll say about the cave is just to reiterate how amazing it really was. I could have gotten lost exploring had our guide let me. Just the mysteriousness of it, its quiet beauty, is something I'll never forget. Hopefully someday I'll be able to experience it again. Post-cave guide quote. I think that meant to say hike. Post-cave hike quote after it had started to rain on the trail back to the van. Hurry up. We don't want to get wet.
It's funny.
So that was my experience in the cave.
That is so cool. And I'm sure it's really hard to kind of explain the feelings that went with it.
Mm-hmm. Like, I still don't know how to describe it except for, like, literally what I wrote of, like, I get why they felt like this was the place to do this. Like, I understand why they felt like it was the proper place to perform religious rituals and ceremonies here. Like, it made total sense to me just because of just... literally, like, it felt like something was there.
Yeah.
I don't... Yeah.
It's hard to, like, really describe one of those places unless you... Like, if the other person has never been in a place that's almost like a liminal space.
Yeah. Yeah. That's... Yeah.
It sounds a little bit like... What's the word I want?
It didn't feel like it was in this realm.
Yeah. Like, it... And I do think there are places like this, like... very, very different vibe. But when we went to the Dark Skies Park in Cherry Springs,
oh sure,
like I described that as almost like a spiritual experience because it was like you could see the Milky Way.
Yes,
and it was like it made you feel like there was something else.
Yeah, something else is out there.
There's something. I get chills thinking about it. And like I was surrounded by people. Cherry Springs itself has a really, really. I'm imagining a much calmer vibe than this particular cave does.
I don't know how other people felt, but when I said in my notes, like, it felt like it was holding its breath.
Yes.
That is the best way I could, like, it was just this hushed, like, even when people were in there, everyone was talking in, like, these, like, really low voices, like, no one was being loud, and it didn't feel to me as though our guides had to tell us that. Like, we all just instantly got almost, like, shrunken down. It
was like there was this like reverence that was being demanded by the space.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
It sounds like it's holy is not the right word, but like it seems like it's such a sacred space.
Yes, very much so.
Maybe in a very different way than we think of sacred in like the big religion. So like currently like Christianity, Judaism, that kind of, I'd imagine it's a different kind of sacred, but it probably felt very like, oh, I can understand why someone thought there was something here.
Yes. Yeah. Because it did. I mean, at least to me. And I'm curious to, like, I kind of wish I would have talked to some of my other classmates about it and just, like, gotten their take on it and see if they felt the same way or if it was just me, like, getting that sense.
Well, I'm curious. Here's a question. And if this is too personal for you, we can cut it out.
No, you're good.
Do you feel the difference in energy in different places? If you walk into different buildings or like even different areas of like the woods, that kind of stuff, do different spaces feel different to you?
Sometimes. Like, I usually don't get it very strongly, but sometimes, yes.
I think because of some of my experiences, it's almost a trauma response.
Like waiting for something to happen almost?
No, it's more of I just think like some people have really, really good hearing. Some people are really, really good at picking up on vibes, right? So I think I'm one of those people that is just very good at picking up on the energy and the vibes of people and spaces.
And in the space.
It benefits me greatly in my day job.
Yeah, sure.
I think I'm just one of those people that's very, very in tune with that kind of stuff without sounding too woo.
Yeah. We're into that woo stuff.
We're into that woo stuff. Like I am someone that like I can feel when moods change in a room.
Yes.
And that, I mean, you know, you could go two ways. You could either go like, oh, that's like weird woo stuff, or oh no, you're just really good at picking up on body language and like
you're very empathic,
environmental changes that other people might not be, just because of whatever reason.
Sure. I definitely feel it more with people.
Okay.
Like if there's like a lot of, particularly with tension, if there's like a lot of tension in the room, I can like definitely pick up on that.
That was a long aside for me to ask you, like, do you feel different in different, for example, I was talking to a friend who hunts, right? And I asked him, I was like, hey, does this part of the woods feel different to you than this part of the woods? And he was like, oh my goodness, yes, they do have different vibes.
Yeah.
Do you pick up on that? So if that's the case, I wouldn't sell yourself short or invalidate, like don't invalidate your experience with the cave because of that. Because different places have different vibes.
Sure. I don't, now that I'm like actively trying to think about, have I ever had something like that before? I'm like, of course, nothing's coming to the forefront of my head. But
what are experiences? What even are woods? Are trees real?
I know. Yeah, exactly. It's like when someone's, hey, what's your favorite food? You're like,
what's food?
You're going to be shocked by this. I've never eaten in my life.
What's your favorite song? What's music?
What's music? What is music even? Yeah, I do feel like I have that to an extent. Okay. I wouldn't say, I mean, and I think you know me well enough to know this. Like, I don't think I'm a particularly like sensitive person in regard to like.
You're sensitive as a donut to me at one point. Was that you who said that?
No, I said, I think you know me well enough to know this by now.
No. At one point, didn't you say to me, you're as sensitive as a donut? That you were?
I don't know if I've said that, but I feel like that makes sense for me.
Was that not you?
I don't think so, but I feel like it's accurate for me.
Someone said it to me.
I believe it. Because I mean, we've said this before on this podcast like multiple times. Is even though our college was like spooky as sin, I've never had. I've never experienced anything there except for that one time I was playing piano in Patterson Lounge where I freaked myself out. But I don't know that was an experience. I think I just scared myself.
You know, we caught an EVP in there, right?
Yeah, I know.
Those pictures were like hella creepy. Their eyes moved and they followed you.
Followed you everywhere.
They did. They were hella creepy.
Yeah, they were. That was my freshman year. I was in there working. Because they have an upright piano in there. For those of you that have never heard us talking about, there's a particular lounge at Wilson College called Patterson Lounge.
Creepy AF.
Very creepy. Where they have all these like old portraits on the wall
of like old presidents and
stuff. Yeah, different people relating to the college, that kind of thing. But they're just all along the walls, and they stare at you when you're in there, and it is creepy. But it was also an area that I felt comfortable to practice in because
that look I just gave you. I'm happy we got that on camera.
I know.
I hated practicing in there because it creeped me the F out.
I think my problem was like I was so scared that people were going to overhear me.
They weren't going to come in there.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I feel like I could hear people coming in the hallway. So if I heard footsteps, I could stop and like wait till they passed, and then I could keep practicing. But it was, I think it was right before Hurricane Sandy blew through.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. Because I remember it was stormy outside, and I had gotten really, really into my practice. Like, I think I was actually in a flow state, which was kind of cool because I don't get there very often. That's not the point. Anyway, I was practicing really into what I was doing, and I stopped for a minute to, like, look through my music, and it hit me how quiet it was.
Yeah.
And I kind of looked around and just saw all the eyes staring at me. I was like, well, I'm out.
Can we add to, I don't care who is extra listed as, it wouldn't be for November because that's already figured out.
Yeah.
Wilson hauntings?
Yes.
Because I have a shit ton of experiences, but there's a lot of like...
I might give you that one just because you're...
Well, even just like, I was thinking about the Sarah Wilson picture.
Oh, Sarah, yeah.
Remember that time someone put a Christmas tree in front of it? And like the Christmas
she got mad.
Yeah.
She was pissed.
Do you remember what happened? The Christmas tree fell over and all that kind of... Like,
didn't they try to move her portrait one time too?
And she got
very
much.
Angry.
Yeah, we should do... We can't give away what happens on that one night.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Yeah, I'll put that on maybe on the January.
That'd be a fun one. I'll start the year off.
I'll just keep there's some that I just keep putting back on the list until someone, Dance Macabre, I'm looking at you, until someone chooses that one.
Like recording at Wilson.
That'd be cool.
So we could do that as a bonus one too.
Oh yeah, at Wilson. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
there's so many.
Record in Patterson or something.
If we catch that, you know what? If there's any episode we're going to catch EVPs on,
it's going to be that one.
Because we got an EVP in that one.
Yeah. So keep an eye out, friends. It we'll do that at some point.
Okay, thoughts. I think I shared my thoughts already.
Yeah, I think I kind of did mine as well.
Okay.
That was my.
What drew you to this topic?
So 2 things. 1, I love Belize, and I will not miss an opportunity to talk about it. 2, I've always said that I've never experienced a true paranormal happening. But when I talked about this in our Fae episode, the more I described it, the more it did start to feel like that was some kind of experience, even if it wasn't like, oh, I saw a ghost or like one of the spirits talked to me. It did feel very otherworldly and supernatural. So I thought it would be a fun one to cover.
Could you imagine like seeing a ghost in that cave? That would probably be like that would be the place I would not want to see a ghost.
Oh no, because
Like,
you can't get out.
Yeah, that's my. I was like,
You're like, you can get out through the tunnel when your guide says you're ready. You're stuck in there until your guide takes you back out.
I wonder if any super sensitive people have gone in there though, and like, excuse me, sir, we need to leave. Like,
yeah, like, can we please get out of here? If you have had an experience like that,
let us know.
Please write in. We want to hear about it.
We'll even read it.
Yes, if you let us, we will read it on air. That would be amazing.
Yeah,
Ooh.
that'd be cool.
I don't like that.
No. All right. Did this episode go the way you thought it would, or go where you thought it would?
Honestly, more or less, I think. Yeah. I don't think we got too crazy.
Not this time.
Not this time.
What did you find the most strange about this topic?
Again, just the feeling I got in there, because I have not been able to describe it to this day. I don't think I've felt anything like that to this day. And just how clearly I still remember it. Like, it clearly had, like, I'm like, when I say, like, when I looked back over my notes from my journal to type it out, and I was like, wow, that's like, I have not changed my description of that cave in 10 years. Every time I tell the story, it is exactly pretty much how I wrote it in that journal.
Which is really cool, honestly, because our memories do tend to change with time.
Sure. You know, it gets dulled or like embellished somehow. Not this time.
It's like, nope, exactly.
Yeah.
So that pretty much wraps up our deep dive. That was not a pun, intended anyways, into, how do you pronounce that cave?
Actun Tunichil Muknal Cave.
Beautiful.
Cave of the Crystal Sepulchre.
Or Cave of the Crystal Dude.
Cave of the Crystal Dude.
Prince, yes.
Well, strangers, it's time for us to part ways.
Until we meet again, make sure you stay respectful of ancient ritual sites.
We'll be back again soon with another Something Strange.
Hey, you ever get that feeling there's something in the dark watching you? If you're like me, you can't look away. That's why I want to tell you about Creepy Shit. It's the podcast that dives into the strange, the haunted, the downright unholy, true crime that never got answers, folklore that refuses to die, and stories that cling to you long after you're done listening. Every week you're invited to sit by the fire with the rest of us creepers and hear something you'll want to share in a hushed voice. So if you're ready to explore things that might go bump in the night and things that don't make a sound at all, subscribe to Creepy Shit Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Join us. We've been waiting for you.